Hello, I am Kristin Koffel, and I am the broker and founder of Boutique Real Estate.
And I'm Michelle Turnus. I'm the Director of Agent Development here at Boutique as well.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about some buyer myths.
Yes, gosh, there's a lot out there.
There are.
I know, and I feel like the start of every busy spring season, there's always a fresh new round of myths that come around that I don't know if there's just blog posts out there or where people are getting information. But yeah, we're going to be Mythbusters today.
Yes. So what do we got? We've got Mythbuster number 1 here.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to go, we do have a little cheat sheet here. Okay, so I'm going to go with one of my favorite things right now. And I am going to wait for interest rates to drop before I buy.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one. So waiting for interest rates to drop. There's two sides to that coin.
Yeah.
Right? You wait because you want your payment to be at a certain place for the home that you have.
Right.
But I keep seeing this just with rates the last few years being a little bit higher than people want, but a home's still continuing to appreciate.
Yeah.
You're still spending as much or more than you would have because you're paying more for the home. So while you might be waiting for that lower interest rate, the prices aren't going down.
Well, I agree. And I feel like for the last 2 years, we've been saying if and when rates go down. And the most recent podcast that I listened to that Les Solgrove put out, love Les.
Yes.
He seems to think, and a lot of Zillow, JP Morgan, that this year we're probably 6% is about as good as we're going to get for the remainder of 2026.
Yeah.
Which historically, it's really not that bad of a rate. But I just think that the thing is there's still people who have that historically low interest rate. And so It's just trying to navigate, what to do there. But if you're waiting for rates to go down, I also don't think that it's a good plan because in the event that, let's say rates do get to 5.5, 5.25, that's going to bring a ton of buyers back into the market. And so we could be in a position where there's a lot of multiple offers again. And also appreciation could really take off again. So if now's the time to move, your house maybe doesn't fit your needs, you're sick of renting, whatever the reason is, reach out. There's a lot of ways that we can help you navigate the normal rates, I guess.
Yeah. And thinking about this too, what a lot of people don't realize is right now in the market that we're in, buyers have a lot of leverage to negotiate.
Yeah.
So while the rate may not be what you want it to be, there's an opportunity to negotiate to get some closing costs paid by the seller or to use some of those closing costs to buy down your rate.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think, you're just in a really good position and you bring up a good point. If we get that competition back, your negotiation power is going to be decreased. We may get back to a situation where you're in multiple offer scenario and you're kind of making some concessions on the buyer side, where right now, with the rates where they're at, inventory where it's at, you have a lot more leverage as a buyer.
Yeah, I would personally rather buy in a market like this
Yes.
than what we've seen a few years ago where we were.
Yes.
Okay, which one do you want to choose now?
Let's go with, I can see a house without signing anything. I'm just gonna click on that tour now button on Zillow.
So I can't speak for the Zillow agents because I don't know. And that's a whole nother thing, right? I know what the state law is, but I don't know when you press that Zillow button, what that receiving agent, what their policy is. But the law is that if you are not talking directly with the listing agent, you do have to sign a buyer agreement form with an agent before they can show you that home. And again, that's just not our policy. That is state law. So the exception to that rule, again, is listing agent. So the listing agent can show you as a prospective buyer the house, but just know when they're doing so, they're representing the seller in that scenario. They are not representing you as a buyer at all. And then the other exception is open house. So, but again, when you go through an open house, generally the agent hosting is there on behalf of the seller.
Yeah, and just for clarification, for those of you that are listening that aren't in the state, we live in Iowa, so this is Iowa law. It's not every state law. There's, some caveats out there if you are a National Association of Realtors member, other things from that. But in Iowa, it is technically the law. But let's play this out. Why would you not want to go directly to the listing agent?
Well, because the listing agent's hired by the seller and they have a fiduciary duty to the seller. So, when you're an agent and when you're showing on the buyer's behalf, I know Michelle and I were very similar in this. I always say my job is to find the things that the buyers don't see, right? They walk in and they're blown away by the beautiful kitchen, but they're missing the fact that the windows won't open and close, or that the patio's sinking, or the fiberboard siding needs replaced, or all of these things. And so when I'm representing a buyer, these are all things that I'm pointing out. When I'm showing a listing, because let's face it, not all listings are perfect, and I'm showing on the seller's behalf, those are things that I'm not going to be pointing out to the buyers, right?
Right. So that we don't have a legal obligation to point out things that you could find on your own that
Exactly.
aren't hidden. And in that situation, our obligation, like you said, is to the seller and representing the seller in that case, and not to the buyer. So from that perspective, but let's say you're like, I'm just going to buy through the listing agent because I'm going to save on commission.
Yeah. Part of that law that we were just talking about that went into effect, it actually prevents the listing agent from having an unrepresented buyer. So essentially what that means is the listing agent has a couple different paths. They can offer dual agency, in which case both the buyer and the seller would need to agree to that representation by that single agent. And at that point, you have one person doing the job of two agents. I don't know about you, but I don't work for free. And many times in that scenario, the buyer's not saving anything because, there's still two jobs being done. And then the other option with that is that the buyers would go directly to an attorney and have them write the paperwork. Now, the downside to having an attorney do that is, the attorney can prepare the legal documents, but the attorney doesn't understand, or they don't oversee every step in that contract the way that we as agents do. And so they're not going to negotiate your inspection repairs for you. They're not going to negotiate if there's a problem with appraisal or things of that nature. So really, this kind of ties into, sometimes you want to save money on not having your own agent. Generally speaking, you're not going to save the money at all. Like, there's going to be something that either you miss because you don't understand it, or you're going to get a really crappy agent maybe who agrees to work for a lot less. But most importantly too, with that, what's important to know is that the use of an agent is actually at an all-time high right now, because even though there's more information out there, like through ChatGPT and things of that nature, it's just really confusing. And you need somebody who's in this every day like we are to help you navigate.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, right? Like attorneys, AI, they don't have the boots on the ground experience to kind of understand what do we see in our market in terms of more normal things to negotiate. Part of negotiation isn't just making sure that you get everything that you want. It's making sure that you don't turn off the other party completely,
right,
and make it so that they refuse to negotiate at all. So there's a delicate balance of understanding what is the market currently doing. How long has this house been on the market? How motivated are the sellers? There's so many pieces that I just think someone who's not boots on the ground really can't understand and represent someone in a way that can help them kind of be their best interest when we walk into those negotiations.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, an agent or an attorney is not going through houses. They've not shown the neighbor's house. They've not reviewed, hundreds of inspection reports.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That was a good one.
What do you got?
Okay. Let's talk about pre-qualification and pre-approval. What's the difference between them?
Yeah. So pre-qualification, basically, if you think about it as you're putting in the information and seeing what you qualify for based on the input that you have. So there's no verification of documents. It's all based on what you know and what you've put in. And in some cases, pre-qualification can give you a great idea of what you can afford and what your payments are going to be, right? I think it's more for the consumer to have that understanding, but it's a lot different than a pre-approval. So there's actually two kinds of pre-approval. There's a pre-approval where you enter in all your information. They're going to pull your credit. They're going to look at the information that you've entered in and give you an approval based on that. And then there's a underwritten pre-approval where they're going to take that information and run it through the underwriting processes to see if there's any hiccups or flags or additional information that may be needed, so you can kind of have an idea up front. So in a lot of cases, we're finding out people that don't have steady W-2 income, maybe they have bonuses, they're hourly, they're seasonal, like maybe on unemployment during the season, maybe they've got like different assets that pay them, rental properties, those kind of things. Sometimes what we think our income looks like is not this, we don't interpret it the same way as an underwriter would interpret it. So having that pre-approval really gives you a more solid base, a stronger, kind of putting a stronger foot forward so that the seller understands like you have gone through the process. You're not just entering information. Your information has been verified with W-2s and different documentation to really, I don't want to say it makes it as good as cash, but it makes it a lot more competitive with a cash offer because you know you've been through that underwriting process already and what you've put in there, you know what the underwriter is going to kind of maybe ask for up front.
Yeah, and I find a lot of times buyers who, I think there's a myth out there, I guess, that, when you're shopping for mortgages, not to let them pull your credit because, people are so afraid of taking it, because it's a hard inquiry, right? But a lot of times through this pre-approval process, they can do just a soft pull too. Or if you do have that full-blown hard inquiry, your pre-approval is actually good for, I think, credit's good for 90 days.
90 days, yeah.
90 days. I've encountered some buyers that are like, no, I don't want my credit pulled until we find the house, but it really, you want it done. You want to know exactly upfront before you even step foot in a house that, what your payment's going to look like, what you can afford, that the bank's giving you the go ahead, because there's nothing worse than falling in love with a house that you can't afford.
Agree. And let's talk about on the listing side as a listing agent, if I get an offer and there's no pre-approval.
Oh yeah.
That offer is, in my mind, not as good as the paper it was written on.
Yeah.
You have no idea if they can even qualify, if they could even get a loan. And I'm not going to want to or recommend to my clients that they pull their house off the market for something that we could have to go throw it back on in a week or two. So I think from a perspective of getting your sellers that you're, submitting an offer to really take your offer seriously and to even really put you in a situation where you have that negotiation power, you have to have a pre-approval. You have to.
Absolutely.
I mean, short of you getting your heart broken from a perspective of not being able to buy it, I think, you're going to get your heart broken if you submit an offer and the seller refuses to even look at it because you don't have that pre-approval. You don't have really skin in the game.
Or if you're in multiple offer situation, I mean, you're just going into the discard pile right away. Okay, so on that, I'm going to actually just throw you a question here. I don't think it's on our sheet.
Okay.
But I think there's a myth out there that if a property has gone pending, so offer accepted, and it comes back on the market, that there's something wrong with it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, could there be something wrong? Absolutely. In those situations, I've been on both sides, right? We just had one that went pending and then it went back on the market and my buyers came in and wrote an offer and we had asked some questions about it and it ended up just being, a buyer that got cold feet. It made complete sense. So I think, yes, that could be indicative of maybe something came up in inspection. There's something that's not right with the house. But it's most often it's just buyers got cold feet. Maybe they didn't like what they saw on the inspection report. Maybe they just decided they didn't want to purchase the house and they used that inspection time frame to get out of the contract. There can be so many different things that can happen.
Maybe the buyers buying the house that just came back on the market, maybe their house that they're selling didn't do so well through a home inspection. So there's all sorts of different reasons why properties can come back on the market. And many times it has nothing to do with the condition of the house. And that's why it's really important that you work with an agent who can make the phone calls. They know what questions to ask. So when you walk in there, you're prepared. If they said, hey, the buyer didn't move forward because the roof is, 17 years old and they weren't comfortable with it. Now that's information that we have. Yes. That we can let our buyers know, hey, they were concerned with the age of the roof and the mechanicals, but they checked out just fine. Doesn't mean they need replaced. It just means they have some age on them.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times there's been something pretty minor that came up on inspection that just blew up the deal. And then the sellers went ahead and fixed it by the time that we made our offer anyway. So like, yes, this came up, but this, and this have already been addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I like this one. Let's stick with home inspections.
Yeah.
A home inspection report is a pass or fail grade.
Well, so that can be true depending on the contingency that you have in your purchase agreement. Our local board purchase agreements that we use. It actually does have that option essentially in our purchase agreement that you can have the property inspected upfront. The buyers and sellers agree property can be inspected. Sellers will not do any repairs. This is just for the buyer to basically make sure that there's nothing more that needs done to the house beyond their expectations. If something comes up that they're uncomfortable with, they can cancel the transaction and get their money back. I would say that's a pretty small percentage of deals that we do. Most of them do have a full inspection contingency. And that is where buyers and sellers agree up front, hey, the buyer is going to have the property inspected. And within that time frame that they've set forth, they also have an opportunity to submit a repair request to the sellers. In that case, if you do have that home inspection contingency, if that's the one that you've opted to have, and if you don't like the outcome of your home inspection, you still have to give the sellers a right to remedy. And so that's a pretty big misconception there.
Yep. I'll just use the inspection period to get out of my contract. And it really, like Kristin mentioned, it really depends on if you're doing an as-is inspection or if you're going kind of that traditional route. And this is where having an experienced agent can be really helpful because they can explain the pros and cons of both of them to you and just help you really understand which avenue works best for you. Depends on, are we looking at multiple offer scenarios? Do we think there's a lot that's going to come up on this house? Are we willing to assume some risk for some minor repairs that need to be done? All of those kind of things come into play. But then, like, pop quiz here for you, Kristin.
Yeah.
On the inspection report itself, do you get a green light or a red light?
No.
There's no like,
you don't
pass, go, collect $200 or like, hey, go to jail. It's red.
No.
Terminate this transaction.
No, I always prepare the buyers to get about a 25 to 45 page report of the property, depending on who the home inspector is. But there's so much great information in there. Photos, videos, you'll know what your furnace size is, where your water shutoff is, all that great stuff. But no, I mean, there's definitely, I believe it's the summary, right? So that's just when you are looking at a very high level. That's my favorite part. As an agent, I always go straight to the summary. Yep. And that's going to tell you marginal and defective items. I believe generally the rule of thumb is anything like under 500-ish is in that marginal. And
with inflation these days, it needs to be 1,000.
Repairs that are needed. I mean, so you're going to see things like dirt could be added around the foundation, ungrounded outlets, concrete settling. A lot of times that's kind of in that marginal. Yep. And then more defective items would be anything that's at the end of its useful life. So for example, if you have a furnace and air conditioner that are past their useful life in textbooks, a lot of times that can be flagged defective, even though it's operating as it should. So it's just being able to look at that and be like, you know what, maybe we need the HVAC guy to come in here and just
verify it's still working.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's why it is so important to have an agent that understands. We're going to walk through the house. We are not inspectors by any means. But when you've walked through enough houses, you can kind of look up and see, like, visually, does the roof look okay? Does it not? You're not going to catch everything not being up there, but you can generally say, like,
still throw me off. Yes! A 3-tab roof always looks old, I think, regardless.
Or just going and being able to say, in our market, there are some different types of electrical boxes that are uninsurable. Yeah. It will be very difficult to get an insurance company to cover the house, and we're going to call that up front. So some of this is knowing some of the items ahead of time, and it may impact kind of your negotiation perspective up front. Hey, maybe I want to ask for a little less in price or more closing costs to compensate for those things that I already know, but I still want to do an inspection too.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, what do you got for me?
How about, I should wait for a housing market crash before I get a great deal. Or to get a great deal. And I'm going to add to this. The further away that we get from 2008 crash, like I hear this a lot less, but there was a time where it was like, I'm going to wait because my cousin's girlfriend got a foreclosure for like hardly anything. Okay.
So first of all, let's just say if you're waiting for a crash, you're probably going to be waiting for a while. We've been through lots of foreclosure properties. How many people with conventional approvals could actually qualify for the condition of these great price deals.
Yeah, not a lot. I mean,
Most of them are not move-in ready. Most of them are not just cosmetic details. I mean, these are things that a lot of times the bank is not going to fund for you unless you're an investor, have some sort of experience, or have one of the renovation loan products, right?
Well, because the foreclosure process in Iowa can take a very long time.
Yes.
And so many times these properties are sitting without utilities on. There's no temperature control in there. If it's a house with a sump pump, the sump pump's not running because there's no electricity to it. So the condition can really deteriorate very quickly and going through the extremes of the colds and the highs here.
A lot of times you end up seeing squatters in there, people that have broken into the houses. There is a place for them. And I think if you're investment minded and you have the skill set or relationships with contractors, they can be a great deal. But I think as a general rule, foreclosure properties are probably not the best way to get a good deal for the average person.
Especially first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
I mean, you've never even owned a house and you buy them, as is. I mean, the bank has never lived there. They don't have to fill out a seller disclosure. I mean, there's just a lot more risk that buyers take on purchasing a foreclosure property. But this is what I always say too. If you're rooting for a housing crash, that's not the only thing that you're rooting for. I mean, because generally when we are in a bad housing market, the economy's in a really bad place. There's a lot of layoffs. There's a lot of bad things going on. So don't ever cheer for that.
No, I agree with that. And I think the other thing that people don't often realize, we in the Midwest, especially in this Des Moines area, we are fairly sheltered from those big highs and lows. So you see them in like bigger towns, coastal communities, those kind of things that you really can have some, when the market is good, like it gets really good, it gets really competitive. And when the market is bad, those prices tank. Here in Des Moines, we're pretty sheltered. Now, other areas of the country during the 2020 COVID times when things went crazy, and there were people that were like 40, 50% appreciation in just a year or two, where here we were more around like that 10%. And on average, we're somewhere between, what do they say, like 2 to 5% per year appreciation, where across the nation that can be a little bit higher. And even if you look at the numbers from 2008, where the rest of the country, or most, big areas of the country were really suffering with these big dips, Iowa had a dip. And we can't deny that. But it was not this great dip that took pricing way, way, way down. So I think as a general rule, if you're here in the Midwest and the Des Moines metro area and you're waiting for this housing market to crash, it's not enough to make a big difference.
And even then, what caused that crash, those programs don't exist anymore. I mean, people just simply could not afford their homes. That had nothing to, anyway.
You could do those stated income loans where I'm just going to tell the lender that I make this much and there's no verification. It's all good. I want the house.
Yeah, everybody was basically pre-qualified, not pre-approved back then, right?
Okay.
Let's do this one and then we can.
Oh, yes. Okay. So always start with a low ball offer so you can leave room for negotiation.
Oh, okay. This is not a good strategy at all because buying and selling is very emotional, right? And especially when you are buying an owner-occupied home. And, an example that I like to use is somebody that's been in their house for 25 years. They've raised their family there. They have the measurements of the kids growing up on the and you come in and you're like, well, it needs carpet and XYZ. And I know that they want $350 for it, but I'm going to offer them $250 just to see where it goes. Before you write an offer, a good agent is going to sit down with you and look at how that house is priced compared to what has recently sold, right? So like the current competition or what most recently sold. And that $350 list price may already take into account the fact that it needs updated, the fact that, everything in there's 25 years old. And so many times that lowballing up front, it can really just set the stage where they don't even respond to you. And even if you do come back, they may not want to continue a conversation with you at all because you have truly insulted.
If you do from the beginning, then it's really hard to hit that middle ground. So it's a delicate balance of making an offer, but putting yourself in a position where you can still negotiate. And if you go way too low, they're not going to meet you in the middle.
No, they're
They
not.
they might have been willing, in this 350 example, they might have been willing to go down to like, let's say 340, 330. But because you went so low, now they're going to go, cool, full price, or okay, fine, we'll go 348.
Yeah.
So I think in a lot of cases, you just really get those emotions fired up and they're like, well, if they really want it, then this is what they're going to pay for it. Or they don't respond at all.
Yeah. You know, and I think working with agents like us who have negotiated hundreds of deals, your agent should sit down with you and not only help you determine what a fair market value is for that house, but also come up with a negotiation strategy. I always ask my clients, what's your goal price? And then we just reverse engineer a negotiation strategy from there.
Yeah.
And it's generally not coming in $50,000 below list price.
No, and I think there's a psychology on both the buyer and the seller side, right? Like as a buyer, you really want to feel like you had a win, like you won something. And for some people, that is just being able to negotiate a good deal, understanding that up front, and then helping talk people through. Like I understand that you want to negotiate a good deal. Market value on this is actually $400,000. You only have to put $25,000 in, so you're getting a good deal even if you come in at full price. And then also really tapping into how would you feel if you didn't get this home? Because if you tell me that you are going to have your heart crushed and you're going to go cry at night because you got to go start this process over, you're never going to find anything as good. Why in the world are we doing this aggressive negotiation? Because we're going to have to start that process over and find another house, which is probably going to be priced higher than you want anyway. So in the end, you're going to end up losing and getting your heart broken.
Yeah. I mean, and we're Iowa nice, right?
Yes.
Whenever I have clients moving in from other parts of the country, and some parts of the country, like they negotiate really hard and they don't really, you know, I had a client from New York City, and when he came in, he was just like, he was a investor and he was very aggressive with his negotiating. And I was like, hey, we're Iowa nice here. You know, like we don't offend our neighbors and friends. It's not that we won't fight hard for our buyers. We absolutely will. But I also think that you need to have this realistic expectation of what the property is, how it's priced, and ultimately whether you want to buy it or not.
Right. It's all data. It's all information. And you just need to make a decision based on all of those information points. A good agent is going to fill in the blanks for you, collect that data for you, and then ultimately guide you and help you make the right decision for you.
For sure.
Okay, I'm going to throw another one out there.
Okay.
You have to have a really good credit score.
Oh, not true.
To get approved.
Not true.
Not true.
No, there's so many different loan programs out there. And I think it's actually VA that technically doesn't even have a credit score. Yep. But no, I think there's some products out there they can do like 580.
Yep.
I always say like, I feel like our generation of parents believe that you had to have the 720 credit score and like everything. I always say it was like put in this perfect box, right? It was like the nice bow on top, 720, you know, hardly any debt and 20% down. Like most buyers, that is not what we're seeing nowadays at all.
No, and I would say if you are hesitant because of your credit score, it's actually a great time to reach out to an agent and a lender because there's so many programs where you can just make some little tweaks to increase your credit score. If you don't really have a credit score yet, there's a lot of programs that have recently come into play too, where they can start looking at like your rent payments, your utility payments, and building your score from there. So it's amazing how many people we've had these conversations with some lenders that we work with, and all of a sudden the lender is 6 months later saying, okay, they're ready to go. It's not always as difficult as you think that it's going to be. And definitely, I would say the large majority of people that we talk to typically will qualify for something out the gate. A lot of this is more about getting their score up higher so they can qualify for better rates versus them not being pre-approved at all.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to ask one more and then really but this is right up your alley. New construction homes are perfect and don't need inspections.
Oh, of course not. They're great. Why would you do a new construction inspection?
It's just like you would never go test drive a new car, right? Like you would just...
It's not like a house is built by humans. Right? Maybe if it was like one of those machine, like cement houses
like
that they build now.
Or like a 3D printer.
Yeah, maybe. But no, I'm just kidding. No, I always tell people, and my family built for years, and It's a human process, a human built product. And so we know that there's going to be things, and the builders are not opposed to inspections either.
No.
Honestly, in a lot of cases, the inspections help them because if there was an issue identified and they fix it before you close, it's just a lot less risk and from a perspective of litigation and big problems in the future. So I always recommend that people get inspections on new construction. I don't think I have ever had a client do a new construction inspection that didn't reveal something.
Completely.
And
agree.
most of the time, the builders are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's completely, on par. In some cases, some of the inspectors aren't necessarily in touch with some of the new requirements on, like I think about like hardy plank siding. You have to caulk above and then leave like a certain amount uncaulked. And so there's like certain rules that sometimes the inspectors don't know because of manufacturer requirements, but the builder can then explain those to you. But I think it's very important to get the home inspections. I would argue that it's probably important to do sewer scopes as well. I've seen this in a couple cases where the toilets have backed up right after moving in. In one case, a contractor left a level in the plumbing. I've had another case where at the city part of the sewer where they connect into the city, there was just a whole like bunch of rocks. And so we didn't find that out until the everything backed up into the house in this new construction. It was obviously on the city side, not on the builder side, something the builder wouldn't have been aware of because they just connected into that.
Right.
But yeah, that was thousands upon thousands of dollars of damage, a home insurance claim right off the bat of moving into a home. So sometimes spending that extra $300 to $500 on an inspection, a couple $100 more to do the sewer scope can really save you a lot of money in the long term and just bring you peace of mind.
Yeah, and I would add to test for radon as well. Not all builders are testing their passive radon systems, and so it's just nice just to have
I would say
that
most of them
tested too.
probably aren't testing their passive radon systems, and it's like less than $500 to add a fan to that system. So it's a pretty
I just had one done
minimal.
last week. It was $480.
Yeah,
So
and I think radon inspections are like $100, $150.
Yeah.
It's not that much, especially if you've got people that are living in that basement space.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been fun busting some myths about
Home buying.
home buying.